Welcome everyone. We are in Florida, Fort Lauderdale.
Yes.
Connected through Lyndon and Keegan from Uncom, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, this year I've met so many different people from around the world, different backgrounds. Jumped on a call with Brian and he told me about this event he was having, THETACON22 in Florida. And he's like, why don't you come film? Brian is the president of the board of directors for Thetacon, and this is the first event. So yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
How's the weekend been for you?
It's been incredible. Incredible. Better than I could have ever expected. I mean, as you can tell, my voice is even half gone. And you know, for an event like this, you're pulling off from a Friday to a Sunday. There's a lot that goes into it logistically. So you kind of are, you know, hoping that will the operations of it go nicely. So you're really concerned about those types of things. How's the engagement with people, you name it. And it went without a hitch. I mean, it just went so as perfect as it could. And a lot of things that go into that. But for the inaugural event, you know, what do you expect out of something like that, right? So you're thinking maybe, hey, if we can get 100 people, a couple hundred people, you name it. What about the online community? How do you keep the engagement there? So having a nice, healthy mix of some of those things. And it just went as well as it could. We had 225 in person that had registered and come to the event, and then we had another 400 this morning, Sunday morning, in the AMA stream, which was awesome. We had 300 yesterday in the stream that were viewing things at a time. So good online engagement as well. Questions that were coming from both in person and online. Booth exhibitor spaces, breakout sessions, parties. Just a good time to celebrate and interact and engage with the Theta Network and the Theta community and ecosystem. It was awesome.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was, you know, someone coming almost as a bit of an outsider to the community and like not really seeing this before or understanding much about it. It's been such an eye-opening experience to see what people are creating, to see the projects they're doing, like the change that they're actually building, and it feels like there's, you know, a movement happening here. So I mean, for people who don't really understand what this community is all about, like how would you explain it to someone from the outside?
Sure.
I can
okay, cool.
it, yeah.
So think about the late 90s as people were trying to better understand what going online was like. You know, a lot of people were pretty skeptical even through the early 2000s as to what it would be like to go online and purchase something. And you have businesses like, think about Amazon and Google and these, that Amazon starting with books selling in bookstores and then selling online and then moving to what Amazon is today and some of their AWS Prime and all that kind of stuff and streaming and blah, blah, blah. It's the same kind of thing now. This is what's happening with blockchain. So you're starting to see that with trustless, secure, whether it's payments or just data capture and information. For us in Theta, it's all about broadband expansion. So, and we all get to know what Theta is a lot as if we even work for Theta Labs, and we're not a part of that. So when you have a community like we have in the Theta community, to be able to put on especially an event like this or just all the projects you had mentioned, outside of even Theta Labs, we're the ones trying to help support. That is a strong community. You don't need the centralized business entity or software itself. You need the ecosystem to really buy in and start utilizing it in different ways. So that's exactly what's happening. You see where we are. We are in the early stages of that. So whoever's watching this, pay attention. You can get in. This is still so early. We are still 5 to 10 years out before people even recognize and acknowledge what smart contracts are and what they do. What are the different applications of it? How would I store and relay information, data, video, you name it, in a secure, trustless type of way? And we are still so early, so we got to get on, whether it's Theta or another one. You know, that's where we are in this.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the coolest thing about all of this and the technology and NFT space is that like the applications really are only limited by how creative you can be and like what you can truly imagine. And I think coming to a conference like this where you see different expressions of it, you see someone making playing cards, you see someone you know, doing an online game, creating drawings, and it's just so many different applications for it. And I think it's really exciting for, you know, people who are starting out in the business world or people who have communities already, you know, like Uncom, for example, how this technology can be utilized, and also just to really build that strong community, which you guys clearly have, and I think you're obviously at the helm of that. So from a community building standpoint, what would you say has been the main sort of success or the best thing that you've done to really drive that community feel?
I mean, you can see it from the energy and positivity of everyone. So, coming into an event like this, you have the keyboard warriors of social media as you prepare for these things. So any business owner knows how much you get coming at you, whether it's positive or negative. A lot of negative feedback really tries to deter you from getting stuff done. So the fear of it or the rejection or whatever it might be. So business owners that are great entrepreneurs know they have to push through that kind of stuff. And you see it in all the different community. So to come to an event like this and to then be able to pick each other up and be positive around each other and motivate each other to keep going, we need more of these types of things. So whether we do them online or in person, that's what it's about. So you start to see a lot of the community engagement and the support of one another. A part of that too, it's not just like the networking piece of it, but it's figuring out what's your skill set. So we say this a lot, and I've said this within the Uncom community, just knowing who you are. What are you good at? What are the things that drive your passion, give you energy? What are you skilled at? And take ownership of that and own it. That's you, that's your identity. Naturally, you're good at those things. What are you not good at? What drains you of energy? It's not that you have to stay away from those things, but those are things you can engage other people in that are gifted in those areas. So this is an event that can absolutely allow you to connect with those people that are gifted in those areas you're not so gifted in. And let's connect, let's collab, let's build something together. That's what you get out of something like this. And we saw it happen. So when you ask kind of what were the things that you could kind of see or view, I mean, anything, you dream of it, it's happening. And to already think about TC23, it's just insane. We've got some really great intro into what it's going to look like next year too already.
Yeah, I think we were actually in this room last night, and there was it was T-World, and they were doing a presentation. It was a new idea, new business venture in this space, and you had all the top minds from the community in it asking really kind of tough questions, adding their suggestions. And you could see the guys who were giving the presentation were almost having their ideas formed by the community in real time.
Yep.
And that was one of the coolest things I saw, that interaction where if you have a business idea, you have a creative project, rather than going 6 months down the line, launching it, and then no one cares, and then the community gives you all this feedback. This was almost an opportunity for people to launch that idea, to test it, and to have that input from a community. And I think that's super special.
Yeah. You're going to see more of that next year too. I mean, we're going to have days dedicated to things just like that.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. And what would you say the difference is? Obviously you guys have been communicating all via Discord, online. Would you say an in-person IRL event like this sort of blows fumes on that? What would you say the difference is? And do you think they complement each other?
I do think both complement one another, but absolutely the in-person stuff breaks down every barrier that was there. So we know whether it's language barriers or it's just a social media or a technological barrier that's there, you can't see the expression, you can't see the aha moment, you can't see the I don't understand or maybe I disagree moment to where you can kind of clarify and get the opportunity to collectively engage. So in person, when you're viewing and connecting with one another, and you can certainly do this through Zoom or Google Meets or whatever, but it's much more in person, and then spending after hours with one another, shooting different ideas and just asking questions, priceless.
And what would you say the future of online meetups are? Do you see it continuing on, text platforms, Zoom, etc., or do you see that kind of moving into some sort of metaverse area where we can almost bridge that gap between in-person and online?
Yeah, so your online meetups, the Zoom pieces of it, certainly accomplish what you need to with regard to getting something done, like a conference meeting or just I've got a question, need an answer type of thing, but it doesn't compare to what you do in real life type of thing. So as we start to bridge that gap of the metaverse space, you start to get a little bit more of that. So you're seeing that, I think Trueverse was one that got brought up, where you can start to have your avatar in. It starts to give you the same kind of feel. You can hear each other talking, but you have to key in pretty quickly, like your expressions or your moves or whatever, to try to do it. So it still doesn't compare wholly to the human interaction and engagement in person, but it gets you closer. And so just wait till we get to VR and you get to some of the other things that are happening. I mean, G-World had a great thing that they were showcasing, and that'll be unbelievable too.
Yeah, I think for me, connecting with people around the globe through some of these online communities, like I've just expanded my awareness so much. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's people I can connect to and have these interactions with, and they can still be to a degree intimate online, but I know what you mean by having that real in-person meetup. And I think when the solution does come around, whether it's Trueverse, something similar like that, where we can have these meetups in a digital space, I feel like we'll be able to progress. Like that meeting we had in this room where they were presenting the idea and forming the idea, I think that's going to be incredibly powerful. Yeah. But last question, what would you say the future, of this space holds, and what do you sort of envisage for Theta as a whole and for the community? What is your overarching vision for what's happening? For
Thetacon or Theta itself?
I think let's do the vision for Theta, and then we can do the vision for Thetacon.
Okay, yeah, so for Theta, it's a matter of time. So you heard the Theta Labs team this morning start to talk through a little bit of what you see larger enterprises and how they operate and consider things to move forward. So a lot of that's been driven by planning, strategic planning, you name it, down the road, funding, how many different types of groups, departments would they have working on these types of things. So it has to take years of planning to kind of move the large ship towards where you go. That'll have an impact on your end user, your consumer. And so you've got to make the on-ramps so much easier for those end users, those consumers like you and I, as to how you interact with that. You can't just have a bunch of people that are completely integrated in that, better understand the tech and know how to work all the different NFTs and smart contracts and do all the different things with addresses and you name it types of things, versus people that, hey, I get on my phone, I click an app and I'm in. So it's going to take time to get those on-ramps nice and smooth for those end users, and that's happening. So with Theta, broadband expansion and what they're using in the media and entertainment space, collectively you're getting larger entities and organizations buying in. First the mid-size and then the big ones. The big ones are already considering it, thinking and working it, but they won't advertise for another year or two when they're ready to fully invest and move forward. So they're pretty smart on how they approach that kind of stuff. So you're going to start to see that. It's going to be much more of an overnight. Things happened and we didn't even realize it. And maybe 10 years down the road, what you won't know is that half the things are powered by Theta, for example, and it's infrastructure behind the scenes blockchain technology. So you won't see like Theta. It's the stuff that powers all the other things infrastructurally to make it happen in a secure way.
Awesome, man. And the vision for Thetacon, where are you guys taking this? How big are you going?
Yeah, so we'll go as big as the community wants it to be, really, honestly. I mean, we were a little bit bigger than I kind of hoped for this year, which was great. And it was a good mix of, you had breakouts that could give you a little bit more intimacy with the different organizations and you name it of the ecosystem. And then you had larger gatherings that's like, okay, we're a big deal. We're coming together as a big community here and can make that happen. You're gonna start to see, now that you've got one under your kind of belt, so to speak, the desire to come to more of these things and build them out. So what we envision is really specific time periods for different groups of the Theta ecosystem. So your developers, or maybe your streamers, or maybe those that want to accomplish different business entity growth on the mainnet or the subchains that just were announced December 1st, and how you can utilize the Theta Network and their Guardian Node, Edge Node system and not have to build out your own, but be able to utilize it to have your own subchain and use tokenomics and everything else for your own ecosystem. So we're going to be learning more and more about that for those people that want to get involved, but then also business entrepreneurial types of people and or investors that want to just come and see different businesses in person before they even kick off, that need the financing to be able to help them out and go. So it's designed to be a platform to really gather different minds and ideas and thoughts and ideas and expose the good of the community and help one another grow and continue to scale.
That's awesome. That's kind of what I felt here. Last question. I know I said last question, but last one. What would you say to someone who is interested in a project, who wants to try and break out into being a creator on the Theta Network? What would you say to them? Where's a good place to start?
One, if you can dream it, you can do it. So that's one thing I've learned. Another thing is just you're going to have to reach out. You've got to take the steps. There's nothing really to react to. You really do have to progressively take the steps to reach out. And you can do that. The easiest way you can do that is through Twitter or Discord. You can certainly go onto different websites and kind of reach out to all the informational types of areas, but you have to continue to connect and meet people. So when I thought about this several years back and I wanted to get to know more of the projects, you constantly had to connect with people, and it requires a good 10 to 20 interactions with some of these people before they realize, oh, it's Brian again. Oh, it's Brian. So it may come across as though you're bothering them, but in order to associate, because you don't get a face necessarily in social media, right? You get a social media presence to where you can then start to interact and engage after you see that same username so many times. But you have to interact and engage. And that's the first step. From there, people are going to start linking you in with the right people, and then you can start to build up. The last thing I would say is, so much in this space, everybody wants things overnight. Actually, it's not just in this space, it's in the business world too, right? Or in real life and relationships, period. You want things overnight. That does not happen. Now, it happens overnight after time, but it takes the time, and then overnight things really occur. So you've got to put in the time, energy, space to do that. And even, that's what I've kind of even seen with Thetacon for sure.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a pleasure, man.
You guys have been awesome.
We'll come back next year.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. You guys get first dibs.
Cheers, brother.
Yeah, you got it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.